Hi, everybody. Welcome to Thriving in Love podcast. Today, I am so excited because we have an awesome guest. Her name is Natalia Griffin, and she is a marriage success hypnotherapist for entrepreneurs. Natalia, hi, and welcome. I'm so excited that you're here.
Sana, I'm so excited and just like rearing to get this conversation going. I feel like we're going to have so much fun.
If you guys haven't checked out Natalia's Instagram, you have to check it out because every time you post something, my entire soul just like feels at peace. And it's like, yes, finally, someone's talking about these things.
The same goes with you. And I think that like excitement that's bubbling up in us is not unique to us. I think that we are on a precipice of change where like a lot of women are contemplating and thinking about these things behind the scenes. And I think
Yeah.
it's women like you and I who are inspired to kind of be the voice behind it, which is so exciting.
I love it. Okay, so how did you get started in hypnotherapy and like what were you doing before? How did it play out in your personal life?
Before I became a hypnotherapist, I was in the corporate world, in an executive marketing position, doing the quote unquote 9 to 5 grind, although it was more like 8 to 7 grind.
Yep. Where were you
And
living?
here in Colorado. So, yeah, I was here in Colorado. And at that time, my husband, well, at that time, my boyfriend and I, we were dating. We knew that we wanted to be together. We were in love and we were committed to each other and we were moving towards marriage. But even back then, our patterns started to establish themselves in our relationship, self sabotage.
Interesting.
hmm And then in my social media feed, I kept seeing this like fabulous woman come on and talking about hypnotherapy. This woman was my very first friend in life. She was my next door neighbor. Comes to turn
Wow.
out she's on TV shows, she's on Dr. Oz, Doctor's TV. Like she's making headlines talking about hypnotherapy and how it like has a different technique besides talk therapy. Because at the time I was in talk therapy, working on my childhood trauma, trying to figure out this relationship thing because I didn't really have a good template, to be honest, and neither
Yeah.
did he.
Not a lot of us do.
No, we don't. And then I decided, you know what, I wanted to give this a try because she makes it feel really safe. Like it's not like what I thought hypnotherapy was. Like she's not like swinging this clock in front of my face. Like this feels approachable. Like I think I want to
That's
try
so
this.
cool.
So I connected with her.
Yeah.
Long story short, I broke through massive breakthroughs in one session quickly.
Wow.
I kind of sat back after seeing some of the transformation happen rapidly in my everyday life. And I was like, okay, I think this is what I've been waiting for. Right.
Isn't it crazy how strong our bodies are? Like so much stronger than our mind, I think. Where like you got those intuitive nudges to even reach out to this woman. And then that changed the entire trajectory of your life. Like that one step that you easily could have been like, oh, that's not for me because of all of our limiting beliefs and our, preconceived notions of the clock tipping in front of
hmm
us. And like, it's
hmm
so easy to be like, oh, I don't believe in that. So it's not for me. But when you get curious instead of judgmental, it can unlock literally the missing piece that you need in order to get you aligned on your true life path.
That was the tipping point for me, was realizing, okay, there's a different way to do this rather than talking about
Yep.
my problems and my patterns
Yeah.
because I'm really over it and I just want to get to the other side of this and start thriving in my
Yeah.
relationship. And let's be honest, I will level with you. We didn't fix this overnight 9 years ago when I
Of
discovered
course.
hypnotherapy. It's
Yeah.
been a journey.
As everything is, as life is. And I always try to make sure that I tell my clients it's not about reaching a destination where you are this like empowered, amazing version of yourself that you see in your mind. It is more about doing the ongoing work to let go of more and more layers. I do believe that we can reach levels, but then there's always another opportunity for more. I think that that's a good reminder for people that it's not about like, okay, once you figure it out and then you reach a destination. And then people are usually like, now what? And it's like, keep going, have fun with it.
hmm Yeah, there's not really there's not an end to expansion and growth.
Mm,
And
love that.
exactly what you're talking about is what I call new level, new devil. And so you reach a new level, right? You finally get to the other side of something that used to bother you, used to trigger you so much. And then all of a sudden it's like, Mario arriving at a new level. Doo, 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 doo. Expansion. Hey, now I've got a new challenge for expansion and growth.
Yeah.
So just to echo exactly what you said.
Yeah, I love it. Rewiring your neural pathways. How does hypnotherapy do that? How does it work exactly?
Every hypnotherapist has a different technique. My technique is a bit of like a three-step approach. I mean, I think it might be helpful to kind of frame this conversation for people depending on where they're coming from or how much inner work they've done. But the reason why the discussion around neural pathways is important is because your pattern in relationship, and we can frame this around a relationship, your pattern around conflict, your pattern around whatever self sabotage you're doing in a relationship isn't you.
Hmm.
It's a neural pathway. And that's why this topic is really important because when we can distinguish this thing that is creating so much havoc in our life, it's really easy for us to be like, well, this is just who I am. This is just who we are. But
The identity.
understand that it's a neural pathway. My three-step approach with rewiring that neural pathway so that you are moving towards success and, reaching your goal in relationship, breaking a pattern, overcoming self-sabotage in your relationship is number one, getting a breakthrough. Getting the breakthrough in a deep dive session, exploring and resolving the root issue behind the self sabotage or pattern.
When I'm thinking about myself in a relationship and I'm thinking about when I get into an argument with my husband, how do we know the difference between, okay, this is a deeper issue that needs to be explored, like a neural pathway or a trigger, versus I'm just trying to fix my relationship or connect with my husband and it's just not working?
Well, that's where the second step comes in. Typically, there's a root, and that could be, one specific event like a big T trauma or small T trauma, or it could just be your attachment style, a
Yeah.
culmination of how you were brought up. And so, whether that trigger is activating your anxious attachment style or anxious inner child, or, making you avoidant because that's how you were conditioned to cope as a child. I mean, the root can be, okay, how you just relate to people with your attachment style, or it could be a specific event. One can be truly resolved, like the reframing trauma can be resolved in a session. Attachment styles, if that's really just the underlying, this is the tracks have been laid. This is kind of how my nervous system is laid. Typically, obviously, the goal is to move into more of a secure attachment style. So the goal isn't to just get rid of your conditioning, right? Like, don't be anxious, be safe. That's not the goal. The goal is really to just grow in your self awareness to your triggers and really listen to what you're needing in that moment of, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling triggered. So you can learn, okay, spot the trigger, learn some emotional regulation and communication skills while you're feeling elevated.
How do you recommend your clients to become aware of those thoughts and feelings? Like, especially in the moment when we're so heated and we're so like controlled by our emotions, how do we step back and become the observer versus leading with our emotions?
In the hypnosis session. So, in the hypnosis session, again, like even if we're dealing with attachment underlying issues, there is a deep fear. And so, that deep fear
Yeah.
is your lack of worthiness or abandonment, things like that. So, once we can remedy that root, then I do, I mean, it really just depends on the individual and what's needed, but typically, like a general technique that we use in hypnotherapy is future pacing. For example, when you're in a hypnotic state, your mind is so much more open to learn,
Yeah.
to receive new suggestions and ideas, which is what hypnotherapy is.
To think of it as like we step back from our ego into our higher self energy. Like we go deeper into that subconscious when we're in the theta brainwaves. Like for me, I was able to do this through plant medicine. So like psychedelics are what helped me activate my neural pathways that had been so deeply sleeping for so
Mhm.
long. And once I was able to unlock that subconscious, I feel like I became like this observer, like this higher self, what I like
Yes.
to call seeing everything from a third party perspective so that you're detached from that emotion, from like that first person point of view to a third person point of view, and being like, okay, I see exactly what's happening. Why did this happen? Let's go travel back in time to like our childhood or to our past experiences and figure out when was the first time I felt that emotion. So I feel like hypnotherapy is probably really similar to what I experienced with the psychedelic experience, where it teaches you about the emotion that you're feeling in that trigger. And it teaches you, like, okay, when's the first time I felt this? Maybe I didn't learn how to process it properly.
It's definitely similar. That's a technique we call like a type of regression where we trace the emotion back to the root. So,
Mm,
back to the root of the emotion, back to the root of the fear. On the flip side of that is, yes, like having perspective is incredibly key. But
yeah.
when we're in the heat of the moment, sometimes we lose that perspective.
Yeah.
And
And it happens still. Like, even though like I'm so aware of all this, it still happens, which I'm sure it probably does for you too, where like it's not, again, back to what we were saying earlier, it's not about reaching a destination like I'm emotionally intelligent now and like I'm not gonna lose control over my emotions. It's like, no. I also don't want to be that person who like is this like sitting higher than my actual life. Like I want to experience the emotions and then I just want to create a safe space to process those emotions and like learn my lessons and then embody those lessons as I move forward in my life.
mhm, I think it's a key part is letting
Yeah.
yourself feel the emotion. But the issue that I experience and a lot of my clients experience is they experience the emotion and the relationship is the victim. So
Mm.
a lot of
Yeah.
things can be said and done in the height of emotion that you can't go back on. And so it's how do you experience the emotion and hold space to honor those emotions and learn from them while building up the marriage and building up the relationship. Kind of going into the next step of how we rewire the neurological pathways for success is learning through repetition. So
Yeah.
our brain learns through repetition because we can have all of these amazing breakthroughs and perspective when we're in, that theta brainwave state, whether you're using plant medicine or hypnotherapy or
Yeah.
another amazing subconscious healing modality, the brain still learns through repetition. So that neural pathway that we're talking about, you can think about like a highway. The more it gets paved out, the more it's clear, the more it's easier to drive on. And so when we're dealing with patterns that are ruining our relationship, it's a well paved pathway. Maybe from our
Yeah.
childhood conditioning or just the way we've been doing things, we get the trigger and we're flying down the highway because it's so well paved. When we have our breakthrough, we essentially set up a hazard cone in front of that highway. With repetition of future pacing yourself, having a different experience, like, okay, in hypnosis, I'm going to guide you through yourself getting triggered and showing up as your higher self.
Mm.
And as a result, you and your husband are in harmony and healing together. You pave a brand new little road. And it's off the beaten path and it's bumpy and
Yeah.
it's got rocks everywhere. But then the next time we're going to drive on it again. And so
Yeah.
you drive
I
on
never
it
thought about
over
it that way.
and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get a trigger or you get challenged or you're faced with some sort of an argument with him. And you go towards that newly paved neural pathway, which is getting stronger and stronger. And the beautiful thing about neuroplasticity is the more we create a new neural pathway about a pattern, the other one starts to dissolve like a wet noodle.
Very cool. That's fascinating. So I want to talk more about you and your husband and your relationship.
Okay.
So when you first started doing the work, you said that it was a journey. Can you kind of walk us through how it was in the beginning versus like where you guys are now?
Sure. So, this whole story is what really has led me to do the work that I do.
Of course.
So,
Life experiences is why we do what we do, right?
yes, yes. Marriage in our in this society that we live in is not exactly thriving, and I think this message is just needed. Also, um,
I agree.
clearly, the way things were in the beginning is, a lot of were great, and then something would happen, and things would get so incredibly bad. Like there was no medium. It was,
Yeah.
we're awesome, we're thriving, we're
Well,
happy.
that's
Like
how it is in survival mode, right? It's the highs and lows, and
there's no
that
middle
becomes an
ground.
addiction.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And my way of responding to him not hearing me, not
Yeah.
validating a feeling or something like that, I would go into from 0 to 100 rage. Like
Same.
I flipped like that, that's just like my dad. That's
Yeah.
who
I was like
that's
my
my
mom.
way of honoring him. That was my way of honoring him, right? That's essentially what
Right.
our subconscious mind is doing is we're honoring a parent. It got really bad. Like I could not control myself. And
Same.
I wanted to be able to communicate. I wanted to be able to communicate steadily and then step back and just realize here's the information, do
Yeah.
with it that you want. And instead, I mean, I have said the most awful things, done the most awful things that didn't really warrant it.
Same. I always say I used to be a really bad wife because I was never taught how to be a good partner. I was always taught how to receive love through transactional things. So, like, I thought because I'm doing the cooking and cleaning, I'm taking care of him on the external, I'm being a good wife. When in reality, a good partner really holds a safe space for your partner's emotions. You show up emotionally intelligent. You talk clearly and concisely over what you're feeling and what you need. But when we are not taught that our needs are valuable and they're important, we never really begin to explore what our needs even are, so that when we come to that crossroads with our partner and feel like something's missing, I don't know about you, but I wasn't even able to know what I needed. I just knew in the moment I'm not receiving what I need. Women are always taught to put their needs aside and cater to everyone that they love in order to be the selfless martyr, like matriarch, like taking care of the household. And I think the work that we do is so incredibly important because it kind of teaches women how to be good partners in life versus just from the external, but more in the internal.
I love hearing about your experience because I think that so many women, like many of my clients, can resonate so much with your story. And then on the
Oh,
flip side is my story, which is like, I didn't really feel like I needed to be the martyr or like I needed to, like, I wanted to be like that housewife and nurture him in that way. I was like, I'm going to go make an amazing business and I'm
yeah.
going to compete with you to be the breadwinner.
That's who I was before I got married. And I swear, as soon as I signed that fucking paper, so I changed completely. Like the person that he got as a wife was not the same person that he fell in love with when we were dating.
Mm.
It
And
was
that
this like
that's
subconscious that went
all
like for
conditioning.
generations and generations of
Hmm.
like women in my entire lineage that are like cook and clean, be a housewife. If you're not a good wife, you're like wasting your life. But my entire life, I've always said I never want to get married because I really want to be successful. I'm here to build a legacy. And then when I fell in love with my partner, with my husband, we both said we don't want to get married. But then my parents were like, well, if you want to live together, you have to get married. And I was like, okay, fine, we'll just sign a piece of paper, big whoop, what's it going to change? It can change everything.
Mm-hmm. And that's the power of conditioning.
Yeah.
So, like, my mother was an excellent housewife. Like, I had a model for it, but my conditioning came from feminist ideology.
You're
And
so lucky.
no, like, on the contrary, the root of all of my issues with my husband
Yeah.
stemmed from the toxic part of feminism, which
Mm.
is I'm independent. I don't need a man. I don't need your permission. All of these things, they can be good on the surface, but we as women, especially if you're a millennial listening and you're in, in a relationship or you're married, we have to become really aware and awake to what the messages are that we've been fed since we were little girls in our society. If my story resonates with you, and see what it's speaking about our men, how it's feeding belief systems around men.
Because of where we're at now in society, a lot of my clients are in that place where I don't need a man. Men have been the reason that I have been having such a hard time reaching my goals for so long, that they subconsciously project all of that anger out onto their partners. And they don't realize that it's not about men versus women. It's such a bigger issue with the patriarchy and capitalism that is getting in the way of harmony and peace in our households. And once we realize that our partners, even though they're male, they are also victims of the same exact system that we are victims of in a different way, is when we can start to open up our minds and our hearts and get curious about their life experience and stop blaming them and realize that you're both trying to get to the same goal, which is peace, harmony, joy, connection, intimacy, right? But when you guys are fighting each other all the time and competing against each other and saying, I'm more of a victim than you are, you don't understand. How can you connect when you're putting up those walls?
You hit the nail on the head by saying, I'd agree with you, and just saying it's really time to end the war between men and women. And this might resonate more if you're in a committed relationship or you're married, but if we can start to become aware of the patriarchal systems and how feminism has affected your belief system in marriage and awaken to it, you start to embrace your role in femininity. That inspires him to step into his masculinity. When we can, I'm going to say this, it's probably going to be like triggering to some people listening, but assume our roles and embrace our roles as a woman
Yeah.
and a man, and within the realm, within the, let's keep it to marriage, within the like constructs of marriage, harmony is on the other side. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of us resist it.
Well, I also always say, like, okay, do you want to keep fighting against your partner, or are you ready to start working together to co create the life that you guys are meant to create together in this world, on this planet, and your purpose of why you're on this planet? So much of our mental and emotional energy gets wasted when we are focusing so heavily on just the household issues that we have, the little mundane things that literally do not need to be that big of an issue, but it's because we've been so weakened by the society, is like we are wasting valuable energy and time that we could be spending on working together in harmony instead of staying stuck in those cycles, repeating those cycles and those patterns over and over and over and over again, and missing out on the true essence of why we're here on this planet.
So I want to hear more about that. What is the true essence of
I
our
think
reasoning?
every single one of us are so incredibly unique, and every single one of us have a purpose here on earth, whether it is to create art or to be the best accountant in a company. Like my husband is literally, I believe, to be the best accountant on this freaking planet. Like he can take a company from this to that. Like that's his purpose. But if he is spending all his time and energy listening to me complaining and arguing with him over the little things and judging him for his lifestyle choices and like trying to get him to be more like the person that I want him to be, I am going to hold him back from his full potential. But when I let go of that control and when I realize that the only thing I have control over is myself, and me putting in that work into myself will inspire him. And if it doesn't inspire him, he has his whole entire own journey to learn his own lessons. Then I can get to work and do the things that I'm meant to do. Instead of being that nagging wife, I can be the empowered woman that I'm here to be.
Sana, I love everything you just said. It's so spot on, and I think that's where a lot of us lose focus in
Yes.
marriage. Is let's get back to the basics. Talk about like what's the meaning of marriage? Like what's the meaning of it? I believe our society has fed us this narrative like, marriage is about what you can get from it rather than what you can give to it. And let's, I
Yeah.
mean, what a beautiful picture of like if we're both on the same page, if your husband and you are on this, your partner and you are on the same page of how can I support them fill their cup today so that they can go out and fulfill their purpose, whether that's going and killing it for your team in front of the boardroom,
Yeah.
or it's going and killing it and being an amazing mom, fulfilling the other's need so that you can go ahead and go out and have that autonomy in your life and go do your thing. I think
Or
that
filling up your own need so that you don't need anything from your partner and you just enjoy each other's company instead of putting that pressure on the other person to be like, well, I can't be the person that I want to be because my husband doesn't do anything for me. He doesn't pour into me at all. He doesn't fulfill any of the needs that I have. And a lot of that is that victim mindset and not that queen energy mindset, which I love that you've touched on your social media as well, because that's kind of what I think about every single time I'm left with a choice. Okay, do I want to choose disconnection and be right? Or do I want to choose love and let it go and like let him live his life? Trust that he's fulfilling what he needs to fulfill, and he needs to trust that I'm fulfilling what I need to fulfill so that we can just show up together in our purpose, in our house, in our marriage, with our kids, with our life as these two adults who are in charge of our own life, and we get to just enjoy life together.
What you're saying resonates with me. I went through many a years experiencing my husband's like strength and autonomy. My husband is a bit more wired for avoidant style, where I am
Yeah.
more, because of my upbringing, I'm more anxiously attached. We still go to therapy, and now it's less, reactive and more proactive therapy approaches. But one of the things that I brought to my therapist years ago was like, I just need to toughen up and like, I need to take care of my own emotional needs. He seems like he's got it. Like he doesn't need me. He's like good. Like I don't have to fulfill anything from him. I want to get there. One of the things that my therapist told me in that statement was we want to move away from codependency. Yes, but there's still purpose to marriage.
Of
Like you
course.
still need that interdependency where you
Totally.
are responsible for the other one and helping them move towards healing and secure attachment. And that was like a huge mind blow that I needed to hear as someone that is extremely independent and like again has that feminist culture upon me saying you don't need a man, and yet that was the thing that was breaking down the trust and safety in our relationship. Once
Yeah.
I opened myself up to, okay, you know what, I need this from you, he
Hmm.
was able to actually step up and we were able to heal together rather than
That's
having
awesome.
our own separate journeys of, I don't need anything from you. You don't need anything from me. Like we still need each other to move towards secure attachment and safety because we're not perfect humans.
For me, what I need from my husband is the way he views life expands my consciousness so much. I can get stuck in my own world, and because he is so different, like he's logical, analytical, money guy, blah, blah, blah. I am the opposite. I am emotional. I am empathetic. I am, all about seeing people's full potential, giving them the benefit of the doubt, seeing all the good. I'm an optimist. He is a realist. So when I get into my head or into my own world about that vision that I have for the world of like how amazing it could be and giving people the benefit of the doubt when they're hurting me, I'm like, oh, it's just their suffering, blah, blah, blah. It's my husband that grounds me, brings me back down to earth and says, we're human, we're not saints. We are allowed to hold people accountable for the actions that they're doing today, regardless of the things that they've gone through in the past. So like
Mm,
I need his mind to bring me down and make me more human every day. Those are the things that I need from him. I don't need him to like validate me or make me feel more secure within myself. What I do need from him is to remind me day in and day out to not care about what other people think and to continue to chase my joy, regardless of how ridiculous it looks to the outside world. I need him to empower me to step fully in my freest expression of self. And what he needs from me is to encourage him and support him no matter what in his own way,
mm.
and like let go of control and surrender that, and that trust and that respect and that admiration that, hey, that's not how I would do it, but clearly something's working for you because you have your life figured out and I trust you.
That's really, really beautiful. A beautiful harmony that you guys have between each other.
I mean, it took us so long to get here.
I still need a lot of validation from my husband.
We all do. There's moments where I find myself literally last week, I was like, "Hey, can you, like, just validate me? Because I'm feeling like I need a little extra push." But then he was like, "Even if I do validate you, it's not gonna land until you find that validation within." It's like when people tell you, "You're so beautiful, you're so beautiful, you're so beautiful." If you don't feel it within, it's not gonna land.
The validation that I think that I still need from my husband is just being heard and understood. And again, that leads back to little Natalia stuff, not feeling heard.
Totally.
But like for an example, like I don't know, a couple months ago, he came home 2 hours later than he said he was. And he's not texting me and I'm like, you motherfucker. Like getting
Yeah.
so mad. And then on the flip
Your
side of it,
anxious
being like,
attachment style got triggered. Yeah,
I
of
am also
course.
worried. Like, is he okay? So he comes through the door and I'm like
Fuming.
a bat out of hell, taking a couple steps back. Like, rather than being like, why didn't you text me? I mean, I think I came out like energetically punching him. And I eventually was able to communicate like 2 step forward, 1 step back,
Of
or whatever
course,
that
yeah.
saying is, and just being like, I felt incredibly unimportant to you, that I wasn't worth 20 seconds to pull out your phone and say, hey, I'm caught up in conversation. Be back in like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And
Valid. I mean, that's so valid. I think it goes back to freedom and autonomy. Like, I think those are the things that we need to work on as anxiously attached people, that we're not their mothers. They don't need to check in with us when they're running late and they're hanging out and they're living their life. I know how it is when I'm having a great conversation with someone and I'm so in it, and then an hour or two goes by and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to text my husband. That's the beauty of like healing your inner child so deeply to the point that you become self reliant and you allow for freedom and autonomy to exist in your relationship, because you say, they don't owe us all of that. I feel like it's kind of,
you and I might have to agree to disagree here because like
mhm,
the way, and again, agree to disagree because, I have my relationship has different rules than
yeah,
yours. So I
of
don't think
course.
there's like a right way or a wrong way to go about it, but like within my own background and
I
within,
didn't mean to step on that at all. I
no,
hope
no,
I was just
I
like
love,
thinking
I
curious.
love that
Yeah.
you're
I
sharing
love
it,
it.
but like I think that we all have our own boundaries. Like your story, even though we have like
100%.
such a similar background, it's not the same. And so my boundaries with my husband is like respect. And to communicate respect to me is just, not coming home exactly when you said you would, but a 20 seconds away from your conversation to let your wife know where you're at so that I'm not worried.
No, of
Like to
course. And I'm not
me,
here to invalidate your feelings at all. I don't know if you saw my latest post on Instagram about like the 7 stages of the evolution of love. So, like the bottom, the bare minimum, the foundation of any successful relationship is respect. But respect can be different for every single person. Just like freedom looks so different for every single person based on what we want and don't want for our lives. And this is why I always tell people, like, it's okay to change and evolve as we are growing and we're healing and we're unraveling more and more parts of our true essence. And it's okay to grow apart from the people that we're in a relationship with too, because we may not know everything that we need in order to have a thriving relationship when we first choose our partners. But as we do the inner work, we learn more and more about ourselves and what our boundaries are and what our non negotiables are and what we need in our relationship. And instead of trying to change our partner in fitting that mold just because we made that commitment 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, doesn't mean you're stuck in that commitment for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean it's a failure. It means that you guys came to a point in your relationship, in your evolution, and saw that, okay, is this something that we can compromise on? Or is it something that is just a core compatibility issue? And that's where the real work is, right? It's like, how do we get to that harmony versus fighting? Like, choose love or choose to fight.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I always get to that point of like acceptance is like the thing that I always come back to over and over and over again. Because it's like, do I want to fight or do I just want to accept and like focus my energy in places that matter? I know he loves me. I know he cares about me. I know he respects me. I know he admires the woman that I am. Do I really need all of these other little things? Or is that something that I can fulfill on my own through my own inner child healing work?
Hmm.
Why do I need this so badly? And if you do, hold on to that and stick to it and say, this is a non negotiable for me. Can you meet me here or not? And let them choose.
Hmm. And that choice is ultimately like, there's so much freedom in that. One of the things that I learned from my therapist in working against the, I'm not going to communicate my needs because I'm just going to do my inner child work and just be my own stability. She checked me and she said, Natalia, don't stop talking. This is how communication breaks down. When you take on it all by yourself, keep bringing your needs to him.
Yeah.
Keep communicating when things don't feel good. And don't just take
Yeah.
it on 100% yourself. So I think it's such a balance because, like, I totally agree with you in that.
No, I agree with you too. You should always speak your needs. Always, always,
And
always.
then ultimately, though, like, let's bring a real life application. You're cooking dinner, you're taking care of the kids. Honey, the trash is full. Please take it out. He didn't do it. Honey, I need the trash done. Okay. I really need some support here. This is what I need in this moment. This is a real world application I'm taking out from my back pocket. You
I
brought your need, you communicated the need, and ultimately it's his decision whether he's going to listen, support
so
you, or not, right?
question for you. Do you think that there is similarities or differences between your inner needs versus external needs? So for instance, like household tasks and chores, I feel like are non-negotiables. That should be an equal split 50-50. Like you shouldn't even have to ask, right? Like, hello, fair play, incredible book, incredible game for married people to split the household chores and things like that. That's when you have to step into that mother energy, when you're asking them to do things around the house, asking them for support around the house. And that's when you can really ruin intimacy, right? Whenever you have to step into that role of like telling them what to do around the house, reminding them over and over again, and they still don't do it, those are like the devils of intimacy. But on the opposite end, when it comes to our inner work, is it really our partner's responsibility to take care of our inner child? Then are they stepping into that father energy when we're like, hey, my inner child's hurting right now? Can you help me feel more secure?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And as I've journeyed through this, like on my own with hypnotherapy, with therapists and couples therapy and all that, I think it's okay. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's okay. Well, number one, I think the foundation is meeting yourself, right? Meeting your own inner child, because no one can mother her like you. However, I think that growth and growing towards that secure attachment style can skyrocket and rapidly reach where you want to be when your partner can view you and your where you're getting prickly or where you're getting reactive as your inner child. When he can view the prickly side of us, right, or you or me as your inner child that has an old wound. And when you can look at
Yeah.
him in his avoidance, let's say, since it sounds like we both have, men who are, at least when they're triggered, go into more avoidance. When we can view them as a little boy that had to do it all on their own and we can
I
love
love that.
them in that, I think that that's where we create the emotional safety rather than just being like, that's your own responsibility. It's your decision to be anxious. It's your decision to
Yeah.
be avoidant. Fine. I think if we can have a little bit more compassion and awareness on our spouses and their inner child, I think it really does exponentially propel the growth towards security.
And then how do we balance that and make sure that we don't go too far in the direction of like being responsible for our partner's inner child? Like, how do we balance the intimacy, the sexual desire of like feeling so attracted to our partner's autonomy and freedom and independence? Also, our innate human desire to support their inner child. I think that's where I struggle the most.
Really?
Because,
Okay.
like,
So maybe you need to reframe the question or ask it again because I need to hear it more clearly.
okay, is it our responsibility to support our partner's inner child healing and growth to get them to that place of secure, loving harmony and joy? Like, how do we balance that role with the sexual desire and intimacy? Like, I know when we were dating, it's like the sexual desire is at its highest because we are not responsible for our partner's emotional and mental needs. We're just learning so much about them as they are and being attracted to that or not. So now that we're married, how do we balance that sexual desire and then also being responsible for their inner child?
I don't think that we're necessarily responsible
Okay.
for their inner child. I don't know if you agree with me there. Maybe I needed to be clear there. I don't think we're responsible to heal our spouse's inner child.
Yeah.
I think that we can just have a hand in helping things along, progressing things for them through showing them emotional safety, like when they're acting out or prickly or avoidant, stepping forward in safety. Or, maybe it's not stepping forward in safety. Maybe it's taking more of a feminine position, just leaning back and just accepting and not reacting. That's also nurturing their inner child.
But like when my inner child gets triggered, like how do I make sure that I'm not asking him to step into that father figure role of like making me feel better about myself when I'm triggered?
Yeah, I think you said it already. It's or we both kind of validate each other in that, bringing your feeling to the table with unattachment.
Yeah. Mm,
So bringing this made me feel this way and I didn't like it.
yeah.
In the future, I would like to see this from you.
Yeah. I love that.
Take or leave it.
Perfect. Done.
And I think that's the challenge is
That's,
the
I love
unattachment,
it.
is a realization
Mhm.
that you are in your queen energy. And as a queen, we have to delegate. And as a queen, we have to communicate to reign the queendom, right?
Yeah.
But when we are
Like
next to our,
balancing that role of managing our own queendom with also verbally communicating and expressing our needs and not falling into that hyper independence of I could take care of myself, I don't need you. But it's like how can we have that interdependence between I know I can take care of myself, but I also want. It's not like a this but, it is a this and.
you nailed it.
Yes, we don't need it, but would it be nice to have? Would it be make me feel more connected? Would it make me feel more supported? And will it ignite more intimacy? Because intimacy isn't
Yes.
just physical intimacy, it is emotional safe space. It is the knowing that your partner has your back and they're supporting you through your needs.
You nailed it. That's exactly it.
I feel
That's
like I just got
exactly
a free coaching session from you. Thank you.
that's exactly it. It's realizing that you are whole and complete and you're nurturing your own inner child and you got that. But you also are co-creating a life by choice with him. So it's like you gotta bring your needs, communicate it with unattachment,
Perfect.
enabling and inspiring him to also step up to his kingdom. Because together,
Yeah.
you already know you can do a lot more greater things together when y'all both are aligned,
Ain't that the
right?
truth? Amazing. Thank you so much. This was so insightful and I had chills the entire time. Please let my audience know where they can find you, how they can work with you.
Yes. So you can find me everywhere at Her World Hypnosis. So Her World Hypnosis on Instagram, herworldhypnosis.com. And I have group coaching programs that you can learn more about on Instagram and my website. And I am expanding my YouTube channel, which is going to start launching some awesome everyday application on how to do self hypnosis and
Oh,
other cool
amazing.
tools like that that can easily get you from one state of mind into the other. Victim mentality, for example, woe is me, to I am whole. I've got this. You know what I'm talking about, especially
Absolutely.
within this the constraints of relationship and marriage. So you can check me out there.
Thank you so much, Natalia. I'm glad we got to do this and hopefully we could do it again with your husband.
I bet we can.